Look at you and your haircut. You're so cute.
Thanks. It's a little uncomfortable. Sorry. Also, I have a fan going because it's getting really hot. So sorry, future me.
I think you need a portable AC unit.
I don't know. I'm fine right now.
You are.
Yeah.
Shh. Welcome to episode 33 of the Mom and Eric podcast.
Mm-hmm.
So today we are going to talk about Black Bag, which is the most recent film from Steven Soderbergh. Am I talking enough into the mic?
Yes, this is a Black Bag episode. I thought it was just a Steven Soderbergh episode.
It could be a Steven Soderbergh episode, but we have watched such different parts of Steven Soderbergh's oeuvre. Also, he makes a lot of movies. We have not seen a lot of what Steven Soderbergh has made.
Yeah.
So, but I think that, I think we can let this.
I was hoping that we would just come having watched some of his movies and talk about him as a director and the movies
Let's
that,
start with Black Bag. I first became aware of Black Bag, which, by the way, I don't think anybody knew about. It had a very limited type of release, and
yeah,
very few people have watched it. I think it did very little box office if it was even released in the theater. But what caught my attention is that that my top two favorite movie critics, Angelica J. Bastian and Sarah from Lainey Gossip, Sarah Mars, they both loved Black Bag. They both said that it was just a really incredibly well done, stylish movie. And so that intrigued me enough to want to watch it. And I did watch it last week. And what was interesting to me about their reviews in particular is that Jade Bastian does not like a lot of things. She writes really thoughtful pieces, but she is often disappointed, like deeply disappointed in a movie, especially when the movie has been like it had big ambitions.
yeah,
So the last movie that she liked before Black Bag was Sinners, and she actually liked that quite a bit. But there's so many movies where she just gets crushingly disappointed at it's that whole thing that you and I talk about constantly, which is that it just didn't do enough, or it just gestures at themes without ever realizing them, or the performances were not pushed far enough. She is frequently disappointed. And so I sympathize with her disappointment, although sometimes it feels really emotional. Although I have to say, I was really moved when I read your review of How to Train Your Dragon.
really.
Yeah, I was so sad. I was so sad.
Oh,
I was so sad at the disappointment that you expressed, that how much you wanted to like it. And then the other thing that was, so interesting about your review and your whole feelings about these live action remakes in general, is that for the most part the critics really liked How to Train this latest
yeah,
they
yeah.
in fact the tone of all the reviews of How to Train Your Dragon were like, oh, this is finally the only one this is the only
Yeah,
decent one
yeah.
that I liked, and so that's what made your review all the sadder.
We're gonna have to
But
have a separate
it's
discussion about
a
that.
separate discussion about live action
Yeah.
remakes.
And if you read my reviews and like them, you should like them.
Okay, I'm
I
sorry.
appreciate no, it's okay. I like seeing the like.
Okay.
No, yeah, but that's kind of you to say. But I think uh that's so funny that you mentioned that. I think I have a weird relationship to like feeling impassioned about movies.
Yeah.
It's like it on the one hand, it's so nerdy and it's just a movie, and it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. But also, these are like some of these stories are so rooted in your life when you saw them, or like uh or realizing that's going to be like somebody's model for like what a movie
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
infuriating when you know what good movies are like. So I totally get that.
So what's interesting about Black Bag after watching it, by the way, is that I liked it quite a bit. I liked it a lot, and I thought it was an incredibly well-made film. And I think that the adjective that keeps on coming up in the reviews that I've read, and also my feeling about it, they keep on saying that it's just very tight, And
Yeah,
so this is one of
I
those
would say
movies.
that too.
Yes, 90 minutes long, which just felt just perfect,
Yeah.
and everything was just so crisp and precise, and the beats were precise. And so, do you want to go through the plot synopsis?
Yeah, so it's a bunch of I'll go through it in the way that I interpreted it. So bunch of agents, we don't really know what agency,
Spies.
spies, like some spy agency, British spy agency. I was thinking
Yes.
MIA, but like I don't, is that even a real thing?
MI,
Um,
MI,
MI
MI6 is a thing.
MI6.
There's MI6 and there's MI5, I
Yeah, I was
think,
trying to
but
think of any British agency or whatever, but it doesn't really matter. But
this is implied to be off book, off the books.
yes, off the books,
Just
black
like,
bag, as they say,
yeah, just like
which is the
Shield.
expression. Yes. Um, they use the expression black bag uh to forego any like details of any sort of cases and things.
Right.
But it's about two spies who are married, and one of them gets a tip that, um, or the husband gets a tip that his wife might be conspiring on some,
That she might be compromised.
yes, on this like device that could kill thousands of people, as it's stated, and or
Yes.
millions of people or whatever.
Yes.
Um, so, but it's his wife and a group of people that are suspects. So he is charged with finding out who the real conspirator is.
And so
Mhm.
Michael Fassbender plays the husband. Kate Blanchett plays the wife.
Yeah,
And then you have a really outstanding cast. Like every single member of the cast, the ensemble, they deliver.
yeah,
They just so deliver. So every performance is it's just so hits the right notes. It's a little bit over the top, but in just the right way.
hmm,
Like every line is delivered with such punch. And so I want to say that I don't think that Black Bag is at all profound. I don't think it's about
no,
anything profound whatsoever. And I think that that is a thing about Soderbergh in general. Like I just don't think of his movies are often, if there's a definition of a movie that's not profound, Ocean's 11 is it. You know, like
yeah,
Ocean's 11 is a straightforward heist film, and there's absolutely no big themes about, there's nothing about class warfare or poor versus the rich or anything like that. There's
yeah,
nothing about that. There's not even that much about human relationships because the whole relationship in Ocean's 11 between George Clooney and Julia Roberts, I'm like, I don't really care. I
yeah,
don't really care that much.
yeah,
So I guess the other way of saying that that Black Bag is not very profound is that it doesn't feel like a tremendous amount is at stake in those types of movies that Steven Soderbergh makes. Nothing's at
yeah,
stake. So I think that it might be the purest form of entertainment. Do you know what I
yeah,
mean? Like it does exactly what it set out to do, and it does it really, really, really well. And so I thought the script was incredible. I thought the script was like really, really lean and beautifully written. And I thought the performances were masterful. I'm sorry, I just segued right into talking about what I liked, how I felt
no,
about
that's
the
what I
movie.
hoped you would do.
Yeah.
I
So what
mean,
did you think? What did you think of
well,
the movie?
what you're saying is exactly what I'm excited to talk about in terms of like what I've gleaned from Steven Soderbergh's movies.
Yes.
But specifically about Black Bag, it was really interesting to hear like from multiple people that it was like an exciting theater experience, or like the most excited they've been at the theater in a while, or
Really?
uniquely, like just in a way that it stood out to them.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember hearing that from somebody not knowing what Black Bag was at all, not knowing who directed it, just seeing the poster with like Michael Fassbender and like all these other actors and thinking like looked like really generic. Like I mean
I know it does.
the poster looked generic. It was like just, floating heads again. And I was like, Black Bag, that gives me nothing about what this is about. Um, but like after watching it, I so get what they mean. It's just because it's so like blatantly simple and fun that
Yes.
that eh, that's actually more surprising than it would be if it tried to do something even bigger. It's something another thing I've seen expressed is like, I didn't know what the fuck was going on, but I was so invested. Like that was me. I could just barely like parse through what was going on, especially when um Michael Fassbender and Kate Blanchett's characters synced up again,
Yes.
like in like
Yes.
towards the end of the movie.
Yes.
Like I just couldn't follow what their plan was. I knew what was going on. I knew they had a plan,
Yeah.
and I knew they were going to root out whoever. And I was also so down for that when she was like, "Why is there a new rug?" I was like,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
"Hell yeah!"
Yeah.
But yeah, that's all you need because they had such good chemistry. and such good actors that like you just get the emotional tone. I so
Yes.
wish like, more movies follow that example. I'll be, even though we're losing a bit of like what's actually going on, but it's still tracking with like
Yeah.
our involvement. And even, I mentioned to you, but my roommate and her boyfriend came in and then they just started watching in the middle of the movie and they were super invested. It was like who done it? It's not
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
not who done it, but I heard. Oh no, you sent me an article about shows that are like this, or like
Oh,
comedy
edited.
shows.
Yes, how to
Um,
maintain the tone between comedy and violence.
right, and I just read a sentence. I was like, it's not a who done it, but a how catch 'em, and
Yes, yeah.
I love that line. And that kind of this movie kind of goes in line with that.
Yes,
Um,
it does. And
but yeah, it was
actually,
just very enjoyable.
yes, and by the way, that article I sent that article to you because it specifically focused on the editor's role of creating that tone, of balancing keeping the tone light enough, but also not shying away when it gets sinister, when it gets suspenseful.
Yeah.
And so they were that article was focusing on shows like Only Murders in the Building, crime shows that also have a lighthearted aspect to it. But Black Bag actually is a perfect example of that in the movie world, right? There are so many elements of that movie that are kind of funny or lighthearted or at least like sort of very stylish and sleek. So like the
Hmm.
initial dinner party with all of the sort of careful preparations and the elaborate theater of the dinner and then the characters and then there's like this slight uncomfortable like this discomfort element, going on because he's starting to question them all by one. And then there's these moments of, humor and break like just moments where lines deliver comic relief or you get a relief of tension, and so I found it a tremendously enjoyable movie to watch. It didn't, there was number one, there was no torture. Number two, there was no excessive violence. There was some suspense, but it was not enough. There weren't any disturbing imagery. If anything, it's a very good looking movie. It looks like a lifestyle advertisement. It's so incredible. Like everything is so beautifully done and the aesthetic is so stylish, and the characters are so stylish. So there are so many things that I loved about this movie, but it was just like sitting down to a perfectly cooked meal,
Yeah.
And so I actually felt a little grateful to Steven Soderbergh for that. I felt grateful to him because so often you and I are pointing out the glaring flaws in the movies that we watch, or we're so deeply in love with the movie that we hope that it gets noticed somehow. But this one, I just feel like he just made a good movie. He just made a really good movie, and I kind of want to say to Steven Soderbergh, thank you for just making a really good movie.
Yeah.
Just making like a really good movie with really good performances and really great like sort of mise en scène and atmosphere.
Yeah.
I will say that I noticed one review on Letterboxd that was really frustrated with Steven Soderbergh's lighting. They
Really.
hate the halos that are created sort of, like in the dinner table when all the lights on the table created these sort of like warm, buttery halos. And I
Mm.
have to, but it's funny because I noticed the lighting almost immediately, and I thought that I actually liked it. I like the way that he does lighting, and I actually remember. I know this is a really weird thing to focus on, but I remember noticing that in Ocean's 11. Like I thought that Ocean's 11 was incredibly romantically well lit. Like for a heist movie, it was romantically well lit.
Yeah.
There were all these just beautiful scenes in a place where Vegas is a place with so much artificial light, so much indoor atmosphere, and yet there were so many scenes that were, especially the ones where George Clooney and Julia Roberts were sort of in their romantic phases, but those scenes were just beautifully lit with a light that I can only describe as golden and buttery soft, like
Yeah.
just glow,
I think it's funny when you can recognize that lighting and
Yes.
how like I mean, especially in older movies, it's very obvious. I actually didn't notice the lighting at all. I think because of how simple it was, I wasn't really focused on the design elements,
Oh,
because
oh,
everything was just shown like just very clearly. There was so much
yes,
clarity
yes,
in the direction, the blocking, like the cutting, like everything was just they knew where your eyes were going and they were just taking
yes,
you along. But thinking of the lighting now and thinking of how you just mentioned the soft lighting, I just remember Kate Blanchett on their bed and like very softly lit, but
yes.
it was darker. So
It was dark.
there's that like soft lighting that makes you feel, like you can really connect to this character. But since it's
Yes,
dark,
intimate.
yes, but since it's dark, it like hints at this like, oh, there's this
I
other side of
know.
her that we don't know, you know? So,
Yes.
and I think it's interesting that we kind of rarely see their place during the day, you know?
Yes. Very
Um,
rarely.
yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's cool. It's cool.
Yeah. So now we can take a step back and talk about Soderbergh in general.
Oh wait, what? Come on. I mean, there's a
Are you
couple.
not?
I
Okay.
I could talk a little more about the movie. Like we don't have
Okay,
to
talk a little bit more
move
about what.
along. Like you
Okay.
know, we'll just go with the flow. I don't know. No, I just was gonna say.
What else did you like about it?
Well, now I don't know. Oh no, I'm kidding.
What
So
else were you gonna
no.
say?
One thing I was gonna say was just how well established the characters are. You know, I think like
Yes.
the my favorite thing about like whodunit type movies, or just like movies where we're trying to find just the one person who's the bad guy,
Yeah.
is being able to, once we have the truth, look back and like see if everything tracks with that, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, yeah. Yeah.
And that's really due to the subtleties in their performances, like in all the actors' performances. Like, you know, we get all the infidelity and then like the breakup stuff and then all this stuff. So when it was revealed that that guy, whoever, I don't know all of these names, obviously, whenever the guy was found out,
Yeah.
when I look back at his scenes, he's like,
Stokes? Yeah.
or something,
I
something
should
with an
look this up
S. I
actually.
do remember something with an S,
Yes.
but
I know that he's been played by the Bridgerton dude,
like he
Renee
would,
Jean Page.
yeah, he like played as super trustworthy and like capable, um, and high strung. Um, and then, but then you get to the scene with where he's being broken up with, and he's like a
Yes.
child, and he's like
Yes, he's a
super,
baby.
yeah, he's a fucking baby. And when you look comparatively at like the blemishes on their characters in other scenes with
Yeah.
different characters,
Yeah.
um, that one sticks out the most as being the most like absurd,
Yes.
because everything else, it's like, the guy who
He
cheats
was
on,
Stokes. Yes.
yeah, uh, the guy whose name starts with an F who cheats on his partner,
Freddie.
Freddie. I know the initials. When we know like Freddie, cheats on him, like, or cheats on her, like he seems very authentic in his infidelity. He's like, yeah,
Yes.
I mean, I lied about, whatever.
Yeah.
And then same, and then his partner seems very conniving and like, just kind of almost for like being a sadist with how like she doesn't reveal her own side of things.
I know. I
Um,
actually thought of her, the adjective that I thought in relation to her, Clarissa, her name is in the
Clarissa,
in the
yeah,
in the movie. The adjective I kept on thinking of is that adjectives was that I thought she was both feral and carnal. Like she's
yeah,
just unashamed about like and she likes everything straight up. She likes everything straight up and like just delivered with a punch. And so that's
true.
why she doesn't care because she at least, she knows that Freddie is unfaithful or she's figured it out, but she just doesn't, he still is what he is.
Yeah.
So anyway.
And then another thing I wanted to mention was how like Soderbergh is good at only showing you what you need to see. So
Yes.
um
Economy
yeah,
and efficiency.
economy. Like we
Elegance
had
too.
yeah, once Michael Fassbender and Kate Blanchett had linked up again, like with their goals, like they found out that they were both ploys to
Pawns.
get at pawns to get at each other.
Yeah.
Thank you. Um then like they hatched this plan, but we had no idea how they hatched this plan. They just did the plan, and
Right.
then it worked beautifully.
Right.
Like so, and that's what I like about Ocean's 11 too. Like everything worked perfectly,
Yes.
basically, and even
Yeah.
like any missteps along the way were like dealt with.
Yes. He
And we
doesn't have
were
any
just
stupid kid plots.
yeah, we were here to just watch this spectacle and like how it aligns with the story and their characters. So like we didn't need to see them like, so how are we gonna get the killer over here? I don't know. It's a tricky, like, they're both super confident and intelligent, and they work together, so they're unstoppable, and that
Yes.
carries through the rest of the movie, which is just my favorite thing. Like because once you like, you don't, because maybe another filmmaker would have been like, it was you, but I did it for love, like
Yeah.
that's silly. They're just
Yeah.
like matter of fact. Um, and it's very well established.
Yeah. I really like Steven Soderbergh also for not being really disgusting and gross. Like I like that he makes everything look really clean and sleek and beautiful.
Yeah,
Because I was actually thinking that that scene with Pierce Brosnan in the restaurant where Kate Blanchett confronts him in the restaurant, you get a shot, just a very brief shot of this gasping fish that he's about to eat. he's about to have sushi and sashimi in this restaurant, and the fish is served to him while it's still breathing,
Hated that.
right?
Hated
I,
that.
I know, but you just get the quickest glimpse of that.
Yeah.
And if that had been David Fincher as a director,
Yeah.
the entire movie would have been that gasping fish. Like the
Yeah.
entire movie would have been scenes of that gas, and everything would have been dirty and grimy and disreputable and broken down. That's what I really like about Steven Soderbergh is that he and I are one when it comes to like trying to keep things as clean as possible.
Yeah. I mean, that's that's funny. That's actually what I was going to mention about the economy was that
Yes,
it's not, you know, we're both people that don't like torture or like gross things or just
right.
like
Dirty
but
things.
we like them, we don't like them extra when they're needless, you know.
Yes.
I mean, I
Oh, that's a good point.
if
You're
it's
right. When it's
if it's
gratuitous.
if it's yes, if it's in the movie and it makes sense, like I'm willing to bear that. You know, I think
Yeah.
one example of that is like Casino Royale, when he gets
Yes.
tortured that fucking awful way, gets hit in the balls
Yes.
naked in the chair. I mean, terrible, but like it's funny also. Um, but like
He's funny about it too.
yeah, but he's
He's
just
like, I
good
have
at
an
like
itch. Yes.
he's just good. Soderbergh's just good at. I don't need that. Like he'll just, you know, I'll tease it or we'll talk about it. You know, and
Right.
that's even the subject of it is enough to invoke emotion. You don't need to show the whole thing, and
Yeah,
it's
well,
also it feels like a waste.
she stabbed a guy in the hand with a knife too early
Yeah.
on in the movie at one of the characters. And I'm saying that he just doesn't linger. He just like, okay, she did it, and then let's just move on.
Right.
So
Right.
it's this let's move on. Let's not dwell on the ground. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
It's just not that big a deal. I
Yeah.
love that about Soderbergh. I really love that about Soderbergh.
Yeah. And you
Um,
know, if we want to move on to, you know, talking about him as a director, randomly I just decided to watch one of his movies that was on his list, and that was Kimi, which is a movie from 2022 with Zoe Kravitz.
I know, and I
Um,
remember barely hearing about this movie.
yeah,
And then when you told me that you watched it, I actually looked it up. So
yeah,
and read the synopsis. But anyway, I was really interested because that's another one of the I just think I think he just makes movies not caring whether or not they get out there in the world. It's so
yeah.
funny.
Aside from the plot, like similar to Black Bag, it's an hour and 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Um, it's like a limited cast, kind of limited budget. Um, and it's like it's just straight to the point, you know, like this is what the
Yeah.
story's about, and then it gets out, you know. One
Yeah.
thing I will just mention now because it's on my mind, but I don't know how much I've talked about this with you, but I'm just like I'm very specific about titles and graphics in movies.
Yeah.
Like if it has if they have graphics and titles that like really fit to the tone of the film, that's
Hmm.
something I really love. But if it feels random or like, you know, not warranted, then like it's something I like notice. Um, so with both of these movies, like I love it because it's like the barest minimum. You know, it's like
Yes.
here's a
Yeah.
movie, all right, titles after, and the titles it's like they picked a random font like off a website, you know, and like
Yeah.
okay, that looks nice, like you know, directed by
Yeah.
Steven Soderbergh. Okay, great, you know, we're done. Um, and you know, normally I would hate this because I'm like oh it has to fit like the story and like are we going to integrate this with like some other extra scenes or something or like backgrounds and stuff and it's like no it's just like we're just giving you the movie and like we're getting in and out and so that's something I actually kind of respect but
Yeah.
it shows me that I think he just really only cares about like the fun and the craft of making a movie
Yes.
and you know when I was reading reviews for Kimi somebody mentioned that he never writes like his own movies. Like he works
Yeah.
with writers.
Yes,
Um,
he does.
and while like you lose a bit of like the personal attachment that would make some of these films like masterpieces,
Yeah.
like that's not what he's really going for. He's going for just like he wants to tell this story in the best way he can, you know?
I know. That's so interesting. That's a great point, actually. Like, just he just wants to make entertaining movies. You know what I mean? He just wants
Yeah,
to tell stories,
yeah.
and it's just there's something to me that's so refreshing about that. You know, and in some ways, I feel he's underappreciated,
Hmm.
because of that.
It
And
and also Kimi was during a time that was more that was like filmed during COVID, you know, and
yes,
they were very upfront about that.
yeah,
And I think it's great that while some filmmaker, I mean, very understandably, like filmmakers would just you know, get away from that because nobody wants to be watching movies about that.
yeah,
Like Soderbergh's like, I don't give a fuck. I'll make a movie like
yeah, yeah,
about
yeah,
this,
yeah, yeah,
like whatever, you know.
yeah, yeah. Did you like
And
it?
that's big. Yeah, I liked it. It was it took a while to get off the ground. Actually some people were saying because the whole story is that Zoe Kravitz is agoraphobic. But then she gets involved in this like murder assault conspiracy thing
Yeah.
because she's a tech worker. She works on basically like the Amazon Alexa, and she gets a recording from from a customer who was assaulted, and she decides to pursue it, but the company doesn't want her to do that. Um, but and the agoraphobia part is what she has to battle in order to like do the right thing. And I
Right.
think that's a really interesting story. They just spend so much time with her like in the room in her apartment, like being agoraphobic, which like
Right.
I don't want to obviously that's an interesting character and it was compelling. It's just it was not very fun to watch. And there was nothing about Zoe Kravitz's character that was super likable because she was also
Yeah.
kind of an asshole.
Yeah.
But just that was a consequence of her condition. Um, but and it's funny because some people wrote and said like I wish the whole movie was in her whole apartment, which I was like,
Yeah.
no, like right when she when she decided to go outside, first of all, everything about the movie changed in terms of like the camera coverage and how it, like everything. But immediately the drama kicked in and I was like so
Yeah.
invested.
Yeah.
Because she was confronting her fear, like, so it just took a while to get there, but once I was in, like I was invested. I think Black Bag sort of had this issue. I was like not really getting what's going on, but all these characters are good. I like all these actors. Like, let's see where this goes. But once you hit that middle mark where,
Yes.
we're on the races, like uh,
Off to the
it's
races.
off to the races. Thank you. I knew you were going to correct me, and I was waiting for that so I could say it right. But once we're off to the races, it just gets really interesting. You can't look away.
Yes. The character establishment is interesting, that you say that she wasn't a very likable character in Kimi. And then the other thing is, I don't know if Soderbergh he does not draw obvious heroes or, like, there's unlikable and likable traits about his characters, especially in Black Bag. Like, you are not at first you're sort of put off by the Michael Fassbender, Kate Blanchett. They're very attractive people,
Yeah,
and they
yeah,
seem to be genuinely connected with one another. But then
yeah,
there's a part of you that's thinking, oh, their relationship's a little fucked up, and they seem
yeah,
a little aloof and distant. And
yeah,
then he
yeah.
seems like a robot, and she seems like kind of like she's just in it for herself. And then, but
With
I
her
know.
therapy scenes too, she's like that. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, she's kind of a bitch, during her therapy scenes. But then then you start to become how can I say that he's really masterful at tilting the scales just enough so that when the story investment kicks in,
Yeah.
you then start to be invested in the characters. Like as loud and as obnoxious as Freddie was, I really liked Freddie by the middle of and then when what's his face Stokes got all whiny and babyish during his therapy session and during the breakup scene, I was sitting there going, "Oh, he's kind of a jerk. Okay, I'm tilted this way." You know what I mean? So I felt at all times that there was a gauge that was sort of wavering back and forth, and I felt that it was very, very efficient character establishment. That as soon as the plot started to unfold, then the needle started to go one way or the other on a
Right.
particular character. I really liked the character of Clarissa because even though she was kind of crazy, she was just so ballsy, and you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
when he broke into
Is
her.
your anal sphincter clenched right now?
Yeah, that's
Crazy.
right. I
Crazy
know
question.
I know that was a crazy question. Unclench your anal sphincter.
Oh, that's what, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, unclench it. Anyway, um, I liked Black Bag so much, and I went back and I watched. So I have to talk a little bit about the context in which I saw Sex Lies and Videotape. That movie came out in 1988, and Soderbergh himself has talked about why he felt like the movie made was a big deal at all. So he said that coming out of the 80s were just a period where movies started to feel like they were made by corporations. Just they were just corporate stories, like a lot of things being churned out, like the teen comedy, or the rom-com. And so
That's funny because I feel like that's how it is now, but
yeah, no, I know. I think that he is still making films in opposition to what he thinks the zeitgeist is. And so he said that he made Sex, Lies, and Videotape, which is one of his first films, if not his first feature film. He said he made it to be handcrafted, to show that movies were about a story and a script, a really good script and really good performances. And so Sex Lies and Videotape, just to quickly give a plot synopsis, is about a man, well, it's about a woman who's played by Andie MacDowell. She's the mother of Margaret Qualley, which is a trivia thing. But anyway, at the time, she was a very well-known model. And so Andie MacDowell is a central character. She plays a discontented housewife who her husband is having an affair with her sister. She doesn't know about it, but she's suspicious. Her sister is played by Laura San Giacomo, who just gives a blistering performance, and Peter Gallagher plays her cheating husband. And her husband's old friend comes through town and needs a place to stay, or just he's just passing through town. And then the Andy McDowell character, she goes and visits him and becomes friends with him, and then she finds out that he has this very weird kink, which is that he takes videos of women. He videotapes them on an old camcorder, and he films them talking about sex. And that is the only way that he can himself come to completion. Like he can only have an orgasm by watching the videotapes of the women talking about sex. He says I'm impotent in other ways. And so anyway, his coming through town and that they're becoming friends, it reveals all these things to Andy McDowell's character about herself. She realizes that a lot of her anxiety and issues, that she herself has more agency to deal with them. And so that's the plot. And what is interesting to me is that I watched Sex Lies and Videotape right in the middle of like going to see films when I was at Brown for class. So I was watching a lot of avant-garde films, as well as I was learning also a lot about the male gaze. And so I saw Sex Lies and Videotape around the same time that Spike Lee released She's Gotta Have It, which was his NYU thesis project. And so both Sex Lies and Videotape and She's Gotta Have It felt like such important movies to me about female agency. It felt like the first time that male directors were actually challenging it. It was way before the time that female directors were allowed to do this, but it felt like the first time that male directors were trying to get away from the male gaze and really say something about it, and really saying something about how women are trapped in our perceptions of women's role in society and how women should behave. So
Mhm.
it's kind of interesting that two male directors were trying to make what I viewed as one of the first two feminist films that I was watching.
Yeah.
And I loved both She's Gotta Have It and Sex Lies and Videotape. And
Yeah.
so this is what's interesting to me. I went back and I watched parts of, I was really disappointed that you could not see Sex Lies and Videotape easily without purchasing it. And then I went back and I watched scenes from it on YouTube. And it is what's so fascinating to me is that it's the opposite of what I love about Black Bag. Okay. It is really a plainly lit, very non-aesthetic film. Like a lot of the scenes take place in the James Spader's character. He's the guy who plays the friend who's passing through. It takes place in his apartment, and he's always like dressed like a schlub, and the apartment's like really sort of bare bones, and he's just got videotapes stacked up on a wall, and he doesn't have any furniture. And it's just and everything is sort of and then the scenes with Andy McDowell's suburban home are very like sterile, like it's meant to convey the sterile atmosphere of a suburban housewife, like the sort of sterile life of a suburban housewife. And so I'm fascinated that Steven Soderbergh came out of the gate with a movie that was so stripped down of his usual aesthetic, like so stripped down of his usual technique. There's hardly any music in it whatsoever, and what score there is really powerful and haunting and moody. Like it sort of sets the atmosphere. So it's a very stripped down movie, and it's entirely about the story, and the characters. It's very, very character driven. Like it's a very character driven piece. And people to this day, I was looking at the comments, about Sex Lies Videotape and the reviews, and people were like, to this day, this is one of the best screenplays that I've ever seen performed on screen. And I agree. The performances are masterful and the beats are incredible. And so I think that since then, Steven Soderbergh, I actually think that he just makes most of his movies are just movies like Ocean's 11. They're just entertaining. They're not about these bigger themes, you know. Every once in a while, he'll take a swing at a bigger theme. So, Dad reminded me that he had made the movie Traffic, which was shocking to me because Traffic is a movie with like interlocking stories about how the drug wars affected different lives. So you had like a very prominent businessman and politician whose daughter got addicted to drugs. It's all about sort of heroin and crack and intertwining the lives of people. It's very, very bleak. It's very bleak and depressing to watch. Would not recommend, although I think it's powerful. But I think that for the most part, Steven Soderbergh just likes to make movies. Do you know what I mean? I think he
Yeah,
just likes
yeah.
to tell stories.
I would be so curious to talk to somebody who says that he's their favorite director. I would just like to know what that perspective is like because I think
Yeah,
when I think about it, it just felt so easy when you wanted this to be the topic to
yeah,
like be like, okay, what movies has he done? And then look and just like pick a random one.
yeah,
Like, because I up until now I or up until now I'd seen I think two. It was
yeah.
like Out of Sight and Ocean's 11.
Yeah,
That
Out
was
of
my
Sight, I love, by the way. I love
yeah.
Out of Sight.
Actually, well, then I saw Black Bag and I was like, okay, so he just makes whatever he wants. Um, but if I were to dive into somebody else like Spielberg or Spike Lee or so I would be like, all right, whew, I mean, this is going to be a heavy,
Yeah,
Tarantino.
yeah, yeah.
Like, oh, this is going to be like I'm going to be dealing with the same
Yeah,
stuff, like
yeah, yeah,
for a
yeah.
lot of, and which is not a bad thing. It's just like that's just a lot to take in. But Soderbergh is like more often hitting the target for you to just be able to watch it
That's
and
right.
enjoy it. Yeah,
That's right. He just wants to make movies that you're going to enjoy, you
yeah,
know? And so I have to say that that sometimes that bums me out or I find it unsatisfying. Okay? So, for example, for whatever reason I'm not a huge fan of Ocean's 11. There's just the characters seem that all the little characters who are making up the Ocean's 11 seem too precious, you know? So I love Ocean's 11 for the plot and how the heist unfolds and how it just unfolds and boom, 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 it hits its beats. But um, everybody in their character quirks seem really obvious and overstated. So
Don Cheadle British
Yes, Don
accents.
Cheadle. Oh my God. Like he takes this bizarre Cockney slang, and then Brad Pitt is always eating in his scene, so he's like always shoving some messy taco in his scene. And then you know what I mean? Like everybody's got a shtick or everybody's got a thing that they're doing, and it just seems unnecessary and a little bit contrived. That's the word that I want. Ocean's 11 seems a little bit over contrived, you
Yeah,
know. And then I actually did not believe the ending. Like I didn't believe that Tess would go back to what's his face just because she saw her boyfriend on tape, you know? Like
yeah.
I think that if Tess was going to
Well,
number one, why would she object to George Clooney being a thief and a criminal if her current boyfriend, played by Andy Garcia, is a mob boss? That's number one. And number two, why would it just take like sort of one little thing like watching a tape to say, oh no, George Clooney is more faithful to me. Like it's just ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
it is ridiculous. And it was funny when you mentioned the content of Sex, Lies, and Videotape, which I
Yeah.
didn't know of, obviously, that it
Yeah.
was like raw and like a male director taking on this topic that
Yeah.
not many male directors were taking on at the time. For him to make Ocean's 11, which I read a review where somebody said, I'm going to take a break from being a feminist and just say this is cool as fuck. Because the movie is a man movie. It's such a
Yes.
man movie
It's a man movie. That's a
that
really
like
good way to put it.
it's just like so man, I like
It's so
it like where how the romance comes into the story and how it's treated and how her character is treated where she'll date some fucking awful mob boss but then also a criminal like guy who we don't know much about. It felt like it felt like Danny Ocean made the movie. It looks like,
Yes.
because it's
Yes.
so perfect. But that in a way aids to it because it feels like such a tight, not tight. It's not. It feels like just such a solidified experience.
Yes.
Um,
I do remember you saying one funny thing. I told you that I wasn't the hugest fan of Julia Roberts. And then you
yeah.
said that you didn't understand that scene that when Matt Damon's
He's like,
character.
ah, this is a favorite part of my day when she walks down the stairs, and it's just
You were like,
like she goes down the stairs like, And I'm like, okay, well, if we were gonna go so man moment, if we were gonna be such a man moment in this movie, we might as well pick somebody who's the most stereotypically. I don't know. I can't. I mean that is breaching into territory that's like not cool. But again, it's weird. But you know, their chemistry was good. And George Clooney's a good actor. I
He is a
do,
good actor.
but I don't know if you. I think I've already told you this, but I don't. I just don't like him. He's like so. He's like weird. He's weird and like pervasive and like I mean, in Out of Sight, he just like is. I just keep remember. I don't remember much about Out of Sight, but I just remember his dirty ass in the trunk of a car with Jennifer Lawrence, and he's dirty as
Lopez.
fuck, and he's just like, so into you, and I'm just like, ugh, gross. But. I don't
He's
know.
a good
Yeah.
actor.
So far though, like Ocean's 11 is my favorite. It's the most it's
Are you
the
serious?
yes, yeah. I mean, it's just in terms of what I'd go back to and watch, like absolutely that one because it's the most fun. The music is the most fun in that too. You know, like something about Black Bag and Kimi that's not really a standout is the music. Like the music aids
Yes.
the story, but it's not something that's like recognizable or you
Oh,
know,
you're right. The music
trend
is really great because
it's
now I
not
remember. Yeah.
it's not transcendent, but like Ocean's 11, you always remember it's
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's like jazzy and funky and cool, and it's
Yeah.
because you're it's all these cool guys doing this cool thing, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then they top it off with Claire de Lune, you know, which like comes out of nowhere, but it's like again, it seems like something Danny Ocean would do.
Yes.
But
That's
that
interesting
but
that it's
it
your
still makes it the
favorite.
most fun. Yeah,
Yeah.
I had fun rewatching it yesterday.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
So, yeah, I think if I were to rank, I think I've seen more Steven Soderbergh films. If I were to
yeah,
rank my top three, I think Sex Lies Videotape is still my favorite because it just had such that big impact at that time in my life.
yeah.
And I do think that it says something. How can I say this? James Spader's character in with his weird kink of videotaping all these women, he thinks that he's providing them this safe space to liberate because they're so repressed by society that they can't be honest and open about what their desire is and how they think about sex. And there's no sex positivity in that era. That everybody's repressed. And so he feels like he gives them a space to do that, and he promises them that no one will ever see their videos but him, you know. So he promises them confidentiality.
So weird.
And so Andy McDowell's character tells him that he's really fucked up, that he's just fooling himself, that he's as messed up as the rest of them are, and that then she forces him to be on camera with her. And that to me is why it was such a powerful statement of agency, like for women to try to control how men see them and how men see their and how men perceive them, you know.
Yeah.
And so that was a fairly straightforward plot point at a time when I was really learning about it. So that's why Sex, Lies, and Videotape stays at the top.
Yeah.
I would say that Black Bag comes second. And then I think that probably Ocean's 11 is, I think Out of Sight comes third. And let's talk a little about Out of Sight. I think
Yeah.
that Out of Sight was just, um, how can I say this? The dynamic, the chemistry between George Clooney and Jennifer Lopez was so
Oh my
sexy.
God, I said Jennifer Lawrence earlier.
I
Oh,
know you did. It was
gross.
so sexy and playful
Can't believe I
and
said
well
that.
done. Like it was so, to me, it was so well done. I love that she played the law enforcement character.
Yeah.
I think that her dad, played by Dennis Farina, when he gives her her new gun, you know, for her birthday, was hilarious.
Yeah.
And so I just think that there's so many elements of that movie that are hilarious. It's based on an Elmore Leonard novel, who is this famous crime novelist, and so many people said that Elmore Leonard could not be adapted successfully to the screen, and people love that Out of Sight. They love that he had done it successfully. Soderbergh had done it successfully, but
Yeah.
I just thought that that movie looked so good. Like that movie was shot. There's so many like dead of winter scenes, you know, like
Yeah.
dead of winter scenes, and everybody looked so good. Like everybody looked great in the scene. Like, and so again, lighting was a big thing in that because there were also so many nighttime
Was
scenes
that
too.
an 80s or 90s movie? Because it just felt like I just remember the
I
style
feel like
being
it was
very that
90s.
era. It just
I
felt like
feel like
such
it
a
was 90s.
90s movie. Yeah.
You had
Um,
a big crush on Jennifer Lopez in that movie. I think
I don't doubt that, but
you
I
kept on
mean,
saying she's so pretty,
clearly
and
hasn't
then
lasted.
no, 1998. Good call. But
I
I
didn't
know it
write that
hasn't
column.
lasted. Actually, you kept on saying after that movie how pretty she was, and then you found out how old she had gotten since that movie, and then you just were not
Okay, okay.
you
Can
were
we?
not you were
I
not
feel I feel like at a certain
you were
point,
not
it's
psyched
you
by
just have
that.
some agenda to make me to paint me as some like I don't know what you're painting me as, but yeah, I don't like it. I don't like it. I didn't say that for the record. I didn't say that, and it's just hearsay. So
Maybe
let's continue with the episode.
maybe I did not like Ocean's 11 as much as you did because of what your point about it being a man movie. Like maybe it was more of a man movie.
Well,
And
so is Out
maybe
of Sight. You know,
Out of Sight I think is a little bit less of a man movie.
I don't know. I mean,
So, yeah. Out of
it's
Sight to me is a
yeah,
little bit less of a man movie and Black Bag to me is a couple movie. I don't think that's a
yeah,
man
yeah.
movie.
Agree, agree.
I think that that's a couple movie.
Yeah.
So, I think it's
Um,
a movie that you go on a date night when you're in your 40s with your husband.
yeah. He has. I mean, Soderbergh has such a wide range of movies. Like
He really
that's
does.
what I was talking about when I was talking about like pulling up his movies and just choosing one to watch. Like
Yeah.
none of them seem like they connected to one another, except maybe Out of Sight and Ocean's 11 because it's just the same actor. As an audience member, it feels like disarming to see a director like that because it's truly somebody who's treating the industry and making movies honestly how it should be treated, which is just an
Yes.
artist making art. Whether or not it like
Hits every time.
hits every time, or like adds to this idea like of him as a person, like or contributes to like a message, like an overall message he's trying to put forward. It's just like I'm gonna try doing this because I want
Yes.
to.
Yes. I
Like
like that he cannot be pinned down.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I saw a TikTok from somebody who was like doing one of those like wake up artists, like you got to make art, And she
Yeah.
was just saying like you got to make art and it might suck, but you're just gonna make it anyways and just
Yeah.
keep making because that's if you're a true artist, that's what you're gonna do. You're gonna make it regardless of if it's good or not.
Yeah.
Um, but you're still gonna believe in it. And I think
Yeah.
that's definitely what his work embodies.
Yes. And by the way, I was actually just looking at his filmography. So the interesting thing about Steven Soderbergh sort of trying, like continuing to make art, and that it doesn't always work because he's made a lot of movies that have not seen the light of day or were really badly reviewed.
Right.
And so, the interesting thing about it is that he's had just enough huge successes where he's probably keeps on earning enough goodwill to have
Mhm.
somebody finance his films. And I also don't think his films are very expensive. Like I don't think he makes super expensive films. I think he keeps like sets really tight and costs really tight. And I don't know how the actors work because Kate Blanchett and Michael Fassbender are A-list actors, so they probably
Yeah.
command a lot of salary. But he's made some big films, and Dad reminded me of some of them actually. Like he made Aaron Brockovich, which won Julia Roberts her only Oscar, and that was her first big sort of Oscar. So Aaron Brockovich was a huge deal. Ocean's 11 is a huge deal. They would not have made all those millions of sequels if the first one had not been
Ugh.
hugely successful.
Yeah, there's
So
so many.
yeah, the first one really was considered to have legs because people just loved it so much. Like people go back to it again and again and again, just like you said you do. They
Yeah.
will. That's a rewatch movie.
And
That's
again, it's a man movie.
it's a
We're
man movie.
yeah.
It's a
For
man
us
movie.
men, it's like hell yeah.
For us
Yeah. We get the girl and we stick it to the man
fans.
and we have a bunch of buddies that are awesome. Yeah. And
Ah,
Brad
that's
Pitt.
what. Yeah, I'm not a Brad Pitt fan, but okay,
Yeah, I
okay.
know.
Yeah. So anyway, so Ocean's 11, Aaron Brockovich, very big movies. He's had some other hits along the way. Traffic was considered to be like one of his more important movies, and then certainly Sex, Lies, and Videotape is considered to be the most film school like canon type of thing.
I've definitely heard that title so often, but
Yes,
never known what it was.
yes, it's such a
Or
and
that it was Soderbergh.
yes, well, back I think that both Soderbergh and Spike Lee went to NYU Tisch School of the Performing Arts. I think
hmm
they went to NYU Film School. So, given the fact that both of them came out close together, Sex, Lies, and Videotape, and She's Gotta Have It, ever for a while, everyone was talking about NYU Film School as the place to be. Like nobody was talking about like Spielberg or Lucas and USC.
Right.
Everybody was talking about NYU because they were making these sort of arty, as Soderbergh said, handcrafted film. The other thing that I will just note is that Soderbergh has a shit ton of directors' interviews online. So he always does the director's commentary on the DVDs that he puts out. So people are always playing snippets about him explaining scenes or explaining what he was after. So I think that what we are picking up on in terms of Soderbergh making art and just continuing to do it and not always succeeding, I think that he's just a real film geek. Like
Yeah.
I think that he is like so passionate about making films, and I don't know if he considers himself to be an auteur, but
Yeah.
Tarantino really only makes a Tarantino film. Like he only
Yes.
and Nolan only makes a Nolan type of film, and
Yes.
Fincher makes Fincher films, you know? I would say that Alfonso Cuarón likes to make different types of films, you know? Guillermo del Toro loves to make monster movies, you know? So there are some iconic directors who will stick to their lane. They
Yeah.
like to make a certain type of film. You know that Tarantino's films are going to be hyper verbose, hyper violent, you know, hyper
Yeah.
violent, and then it will have just a lot of like really jarring moments, you know, and just super realistic and extended violence, you know. And so it's very interesting to me that others like Soderbergh and Cuarón they don't want to be pinned down to any one genre. They want to try different things because they love filmmaking so much. And I think that they're master craftspeople. I think that they really get how to pull all the things together. And so I forgive Soderbergh for not making more quote unquote important movies. I don't think I
Yeah.
need him to make important movies. It is fascinating to me. If you ask me what his movies are about, I'm like, they're just a story. It's just a story about a heist
Yeah.
story. It's just a story about a couple who's a spy with each other. But there's nothing profound about that. And I'm not only okay with that, I appreciate him for who he is.
So I saw somebody, a director, get asked. I think it was Ryan Coogler who was asked like, "Who's your favorite director?"
Hmm.
And he was like, I don't have favorite directors. I have favorite movies. I have favorite
Yeah.
films." You know,
Yes.
um, and
Well,
that's
Like Puss in
like
Boots.
Puss in Boot. Um,
The Last Wish.
like I think it's interesting. You know, when you're mentioning Soderbergh doesn't get pinned down, and then he also doesn't care necessarily about making things that are profound or important, but
Yes.
like profoundness and importance like is just a consequence of like I think something deeply personal like from a director.
Yes. That's
And
right.
these movies from directors like Tarantino and Spike Lee, um and big names like are movies where you get a sense of the person who made it, you know, like
Yes.
Tarantino, you know, he likes feet. And then Spike Lee, you know, he like has really great things to say about a lot of the fucked up things about this country, you know.
Yes.
um and Soderbergh, like it's like, you know, I almost wish I knew a bit about what he was like, other than that he likes making movies. You know,
Yes.
I feel like I'm noticing directors that have such a profound respect and profound understanding of the craft that they almost
Yes.
forget to just be selfish and make their own movie, you know?
Yes. Yeah.
And you know, they acknowledge that they're selfish, but for some reason, you just don't really feel it. Like,
Yeah.
weirdly enough, I feel like I'd put Denis Villeneuve in that category. Like
Yeah.
he's somebody who's so collaborative, and they are his movies, and he makes sci-fi movies. It helps that he makes a lot of the same genre because it's like he's
Yeah.
really good at making sci-fi. But also,
Yes.
I feel like each one of his movies, I feel like I lose a little connection or personal like profoundness and importance. But and I think it's because they just don't like. I think there's I don't know. I feel like there's a part of your soul you have to sell. They like get to that level.
That's
Um,
interesting that you feel that way. I don't know if I feel that way, just because I think that a soul thing, like a soul connection,
yeah,
I think that, how can I say this? When Denis Villeneuve makes a movie, I
yeah,
feel like what I am seeing is the realization of his vision, like
yeah,
and his vision is really grand and sweeping, but also it, uh, but also personal. Like there's something tight about the connection to the characters. And so I think that Villeneuve does a really good job of letting the characters shine through, despite the fact that so much of it is spectacle, you know? So I guess with Denis Villeneuve, I'm sold on his vision, you know? I think that Tarantino has a vision, but I don't like his vision. I think Fincher has vision, but I don't like his
Yeah.
vision. I don't like to live in the worlds that they create. I don't like to
Yeah.
even be exposed to the worlds that they create. And so I like, for me, seeing a Tarantino film is like homework, you know? Like somebody has to tell me to go see a Tarantino film because it's important and it does innovative things. And I will agree that it's an important and original statement on filmmaking. I think that Pulp Fiction and Reservoir Dogs were very original and very powerful, but I don't like it. Like I just don't like it. It's just it makes me really uncomfortable, his extended use of torture and violence, you know? And
Yeah.
so anyway, so but I just get the feeling with Steven Soderbergh, I don't get a sense of his vision other than a heightened aesthetic sense in some of his
Yeah.
films and
Yeah.
the
That's
lighting.
yeah. That's
Yeah. I
totally
don't
fair.
get a sense of his vision overall because he jumps around so much and he tries so many different things. But I do get the feeling that he's just trying to say, look, I'm going to tell you a good story and I'm going to do it as well as possible.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm
And in
I'm
a way,
okay with
that's
it.
more, you give more respect to that. I mean,
Yes.
like, cause it's so easy to fail on like living up to your vision. I think it's
Yes.
like
It's
it's
so
such an
easy to
easy thing.
fail.
And it,
It's
but when you have a set of when you have goals and you meet those goals and you get people in the theater, that's all. Like,
yes.
that's all you need.
Yeah, I
Um,
think if anything, I think that Steven Soderbergh's signature is to be really stylish. I think he's a very stylish
yeah, yeah,
filmmaker. And so I think that he just brings a tremendous amount of sort of panache to the whole art. And
yeah,
I do think that I think you could easily teach a class on Soderbergh and his and how he shoots films. And I think that he should be inspirational to the people out there who want to make movies. You know what I mean? Like which is
yeah.
just go out there and make shit. It's exactly like you said what you described when you came back from the student, was it the student
The film,
film
yeah, yeah.
festival in Seattle? What was the name of that film festival?
The the nifty National Film Festival for Talented Youth. I have to say it like that every time because it's so stupid. Talented youth. I was a talented youth. No.
But you said that you were so inspired by the films that you saw because
Oh,
it was just people who went and made films. So I think that Soderbergh and people like Soderbergh and Cuarón, who's a little bit more above, and then Villeneuve, I think they keep that dream alive. You know what I mean? Like you can start small and intimate with something like Sex, Lies, and Videotape if you just have a really good screenplay, you know, and you get really good actors to play your parts. And then you shoot everything and you block everything really tightly. But eventually you can go on to try much bigger spectacle, like bigger budget, bigger stories, you know, just as long as you just keep doing it. So this whole thing about keep doing it, especially at a time when there's just a rash of articles about Hollywood is dead or filmmaking is dead or the studio system is dead or AI really is taking over. And um, yeah, there's a lot of just depression out there and but I think that films like Black Bag really keep my hope alive that there will be filmmakers who continue to make that's how I felt about Sinners, okay? Just keep on giving me fucking original films, stories that I enjoy. Let me spend these 2 hours or an hour and a half just enjoying myself and the characters and the plot. And that's all I ask. That's all I
yeah.
ask
That's
from
honestly
my
the thing I respect the most about Soderbergh. Like, just thinking back, is just like his timeliness and
yes.
his run times. Um, because that's the most. I mean, I doubt it's even like an intentional thing. I mean, it is an intentional thing, but it's more just like it's not to get to time. It's for the story, and the
Yes.
story it only works in this time.
Everybody is talking about Tom Cruise and the last Mission Impossible. Everybody's talking about this. And um they're talking about it because it's an anniversary of some of Tom Cruise's craziest behaviors. And then the other thing is that when Tom Cruise released Top Gun Maverick, everybody started calling him the savior of the movie industry. Like everybody started talking about him because That movie was so entertaining and enjoyed by so many people. It was such a big hit. And so everybody started to revise the story on Tom Cruise and say like, oh, he's not as crazy as we really appreciate all the effort that he puts into doing his own stunts. We really appreciate all the effort and care. He insisted on this being like a wide theatrical release at a time when the movie theaters are really struggling. He's going to bring people back to the movie theater and seat their
Man,
butts in this. You know what I mean? Like, so
he
everybody,
sacrificed so much, you know?
I know everybody's contributing to the
Yeah.
storyline of Tom Cruise as the savior to the point where I think that he has bought into his own story. Like he's like showing up and doing these big splashy premieres where he shows up in helicopters and he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna do these big spectacle premieres and big spectacle promos and these big spectacle movies." In the meantime, he doesn't wear his failures as well as like Steven Soderbergh. Like Steven Soderbergh makes a lot of movies that don't do well and they weren't very good, but then he'll make like a decent little movie like Black Bag, you know? And so that that TikTok I sent you or that video I sent you making fun of the Mission Impossible script, I still watch that because it was so damn funny.
It's so good.
It's
I
so funny.
so succinctly put in a sketch what I wanted to say about the writing of those movies because it's
Yes,
so like
they're so bad.
expositional and trash. Like, ugh.
Ash. That's exactly it, you know?
Trash.
Trash. So I think that the success story about Tom Cruise, the rise and fall of Tom Cruise, and the actual quality of the films that he's making, because he is the executive producer on all of these films, I think that that I think that that is feels a lot more fake, and I think that the Soderberghs of the films are just making films and just doing it because they love filmmaking, and they are the ones that I think will save filmmaking, not Tom Cruise and
Yeah,
these
yeah.
big budget spectacles that with the scripts that have been written by
Excellent.
AI.
Great
Yes.
point. I
Yes.
agree.
Yeah. So that's where I would end. And I mean, I'm if you ask me, I'm going to ask you this question too, but if you ask me how hopeful I'm feeling about movies, I'm feeling guardedly optimistic. Like I feel like I'm feeling guardedly optimistic. There's just a lot going on and Marvel um, there's the ongoing Marvel disappointment. There's the crap that's being put out, like Mission Impossible. But Sinners and Black Bag, I just really liked. And you and I when I looked back at our episodes and we talked about flow and the fact that that film won, the Oscar, just things like that. It just feels like there are little beacons of hope about filmmaking and the state of filmmaking. So what do you?
If anything was a beacon of hope, it was that film festival I went to. I mean, that's
Yeah.
like there was so many great ideas and so much talent. That like, good there will always be good art. The concern I always have is if it's going to be oversaturated with the shitty shit. Fuck.
Yes.
Because especially with the state of theaters, like,
Yes.
stuff like the stuff I saw at the film festival,
Yeah.
like wouldn't be in theaters.
Yeah.
Um, so I don't know. I mean,
How are you feeling? Cautiously optimistic, guarded, neutral?
I'm so like in shambles about like being in the industry ever that I don't even know if the industry is it has a lifeline or has, I don't know. I think, yeah, I mean, it's just great to see new good movies. Sometimes I feel like um so biased with my nostalgia about movies because is this because of nostalgia or am I just like what's
Yeah.
wrong with me?
You're wondering if your
Um
judgment is clouded
exactly. So
or
um
compromised.
yeah, but it's more hopeful when I see new good things. The film festival thing was just for me to say like I think there is a wave of young filmmakers who are super eager to do new projects, but are so disillusioned with the whole industry and like how the world is right now. So
Yes.
I would just hope that the optimism and the artistry would break through. And I think it will because usually it does. So
Yeah. Yeah. So I hope we get to see more good movies.
yeah.
I hope we get to talk about more good movies on this podcast. But I just hope those opportunities keep on coming up.
Yeah.
So we'll see. And then when we sign off, I'm going to ask if you want to try to see Superman together when we're
Okay. Yeah.
but anyway, So anyway, let's wrap this up. But this was
Yes.
fun. This was fun talking about Soderbergh. It was fun watching Black Bag.
Yeah.
Um, when Michael Fassbender said when they were lying in bed and he saw all of a sudden because I think I'm being set up. I was just like, I went,
The way, yeah, because they were just completely not talking to each other about
they
it.
were completely not talking to
Yeah.
each other. And then all of a sudden she goes, I think I'm being set up too. They're
Yeah.
on the same page. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I really appreciate you getting me to watch more Soderbergh movies because up until now it was Out of Sight and Ocean's 11 were my only movies I'd seen,
Yeah.
and those are both very man movies. So I thought Soderbergh was just a man director, you know. But
You should
now
watch
that
Sex, Lies, and Videotape sometime.
I know I
And you know what? I
should.
think I'm going to end up buying it because I really like that movie a lot.
Okay, okay.
So,
I'd watch that. And I I'm just glad I have this view of his career and his films now because it really aids to like my understanding of films, but also my understanding of like bodies of work and what that actually
yes.
contributes to
Yes.
the culture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I love you, Eric.
Love you too.
That's
Okay, I'll see you
episode
next time.
33. Yeah. See you next time.